DVD-Forum.at meldet sich wieder vom Weekend of Horrors in Wien mit einem neuen Interview. Neben mir sitzt Vincent Guastaferro von Friday the 13th Part 6 oder Shocker. And the first thing I would like to ask you is, how did you get into acting?
Okay, first of all, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here with Clemens from DVD Forum. He's a cool guy and he's doing a good interview. Thank you. Now, how did I get into it? I was an art major at a university and my scholarship was based on doing scenery design and costume design. And I don't know if you noticed over the last couple of days, but I'm kind of animated and a funny kind of guy, I hope. And people were coming up to me and saying, "Oh man, why don't you come into the theater department and be an actor with us? Why are you working behind the scenes?" And frankly, I didn't like actors. I thought they were all egomaniacs. I thought all they ever did was talk about themselves. But I was lucky enough to be asked to join a cast. My first play ever was a commedia dell'arte play, which was very physical, and it got me jumping around and the audience laughed at me. I played the character of Scapino, a classical commedia dell'arte character. Some of you know him from French literature as Scapin. But nevertheless, that was my very first role ever, and it was on stage, and I took to it fairly easily. The audience took to me fairly easily. I dropped my artwork and my musicianship. I used to play saxophone, and I got into acting at that point. So I was already, let's say, my second year of college. I started late. Some of the people that are here, as you know, started as they were children. So that's how I got into it, and I continued to do plays. And then I moved to Chicago for graduate school, and I majored in theater, got my advanced degree in acting, and right after school I was very lucky, and I started working professionally. Then, I'm going to tell a little more? Yes,
of course.
Keep going?
Keep going.
And then a lot of my friends from Chicago left and they went to New York, or they went to Los Angeles. And I thought the best thing I could do for myself would be to stay in Chicago and get some experience, professional experience, get paid as an actor, acquire my union cards, so that way I was legitimate when I finally decided to go to Los Angeles. And within a few months after being in Los Angeles, I did a play there, got a lot of notice, and ended up signing with an agent and a manager, and that's where I started, with small parts on TV, segueing into film, and eventually I ended up revisiting stage by going back to Broadway many years later.
You said that you thought actors are egomaniacs. So now that you are one yourself, can you revisit this statement? Are they really?
Yes, absolutely. It's the nature of the beast, where we think that other people are scrutinizing us in the same way we scrutinize ourselves. And so we're always worried about either how we look or how we sound, how we present ourselves. And I think that's very true of younger actors. And then after you get a lot of miles under your belt, you start to realize, David Mamet said to me, "You are 100 times more interesting than anybody you could pretend to be." And once that started to ring true for me, I realized who I was, where I fit into the whole picture, and I started having a fairly good amount of success with many years on a television series, which you wanted to talk about, and several other, movies, on and on. So,
since you mentioned David Mamet now, you did 6 movies with him. You did Homicide, you did Red Belt, you did Spartan with Val Kilmer. Can you tell me a little bit about working with him? Because his scripts are so elaborate, his directing style is so unique. How is it to work with a guy this unique?
Okay. I'm glad you asked me, because I don't think I could ever give enough tribute to him. First of all, I do believe he's the greatest American playwright in the last 25, 30 years. Second of all, my roots with David go very far back to Chicago. I started doing plays for him when he was not famous. This is before the Pulitzer Prize, before any of his accolades on Broadway. He's a very loyal person. And so to work for him was not difficult. My first couple of movies with David, I did not audition. He called me up and say, Vinny, I want you to play the cop in Homicide. I said, what? He said, just bring a badge and a gun. And that's how it happened. After Homicide, we did, well, first we did Things Change, then we did Homicide, and on, the list that you just named. Working for him is a dream. He is a complete gentleman, despite the language that he's accused of abusing in his plays and in his screenplays. As a person, he's kind, gentle, and super intelligent, and very, very nurturing of his friends. So if he has you on the set, he's not one of those directors who's going to beat you up to get you to do something. He's just going to say, why don't you do it the way you would do it, because you are 100 times more interesting than anybody you could pretend to be. And he allows you to bring yourself to the role. Now, when you're first starting out in movies, to have a director like that give you that confidence, give you that ability to bring your best self to any role that you do, was a gift. And I see David Mamet as, you know, I don't want to say God, that's going too far, but I could thank him for probably starting my career, helping me get, what, 6 movies under my belt that translated very well into other people wanting to hire me, wanting to work with me. Because once you work with Dave, they know you got chops and they know you can deliver. And I've had formidable roles in all of those movies. So that's all I could say about him. Is he's a mensch, he's wonderful, I love him, and I owe him my career.
You mentioned the word auditioning, so I've heard by, accident, because you mentioned it in your Q&A, that it's a very funny story how you got your part on Friday the 13th, part 6.
Okay, no, Friday the 13th, I think you might be confusing 2 stories. The story where I wrecked the room, is that the one you're talking about? That was Shocker.
Okay.
Okay, but this is funny. I had done Friday the 13th and a couple of other low-budget horror movies, and then I started having some success in the non-horror genre, television. Excuse me. And so the opportunity to audition for Shocker came up. And I remember not being in a good mood about it. I was like, oh man, a horror movie? I just thought I was getting my feet going with this other stuff. And when you read horror movies, they don't look like they're significant on paper. They look a little wacky. And it said the cop comes in and he's possessed by a demon and he chases Tommy and shoots at him 20 times. And I had a very bad attitude. And my wife, who is also an actress, she was in Friday the 13th, played the role of Annette. She said to me, hey, this is an acting job. You came here to be an actor. This is an opportunity to work with one of the greatest horror directors ever, Wes Craven. So why don't you just go in there and kick ass? And she and I had a little bit of a disagreement about it, and I was mad. I was really mad. So when I went into the audition room, I had this bad attitude. And I just remember, well, I'm going to use my anger. And when he said to me, it's time to go wild, I kicked the coffee table, I threw the chair on the floor, and I started going, Larr! My image was, I don't know if you guys know, Jackie Gleason, famous Jackie Gleason? Jackie Gleason on acid. Okay? So I thought, that's a good image. So I'm going to go do Jackie Gleason on acid for this audition. And I got hired on the spot. That is my true story. The casting director, Wes said to the casting director, okay, we got our Pastori, we'll use Vinny. And the casting director was forced to go out into the room where all the other actors were waiting and say, okay guys, I'm sorry, something happened today, the schedule is off, you can all go home. And I was standing there like this. Why do I like coming to the conventions? For you, to meet people, to meet more people from other parts of the world. I think every experience, even this one right now, makes me a more whole person.
Great. I'm glad I can do that for you.
Yeah.
So thank you very, very much
Was
for
that
the interview.
enough? Did you cover what you wanted?
That was awesome. That was really, really
Great.
awesome. Und euch sage ich Dankeschön fürs Zuschauen. Wir melden uns wieder.